Hello and welcome to this exploring session as we complete our work on George Greene, attributed to Robert Crighton, though opinions possibly vary. It doesn't desperately matter too much for the exercise that we are doing today. We're about an act and a bit into the play. We're going to finish it this session, all things going well. The story so far, Captain Mannering and Kendal Mintcake have decided to organise the worst rebellion in history, aligning themselves with the King of Scotland, who's very interested in boys, at least in so much as finding out whether the boy's mother is a bit of all right that he can try and shag. Meanwhile, the rebellion has been resisted by George Greene, the titular character, who has told them all to get packing, and the King of Scots has been captured by the old Musgrove, the finest horseman in all Westmoreland. That all, I think, covers the plot so far in a way that is hopefully completely unhelpful for you. Go to the previous video. We start about an hour or so in when we get to starting on George Greene. To finish this exciting journey, we have a team of fabulous readers for you today, and so in no particular order. Reading the part of King Edward today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott. I've never tried to earn a living from acting.
And reading the part of King James and much is...
Hi, I'm William Sutton, and I do make a paltry living from acting.
And reading the part of Cuddy and Scarlet is...
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm an actor based in Montpellier.
Reading the part of Grime and Warwick is...
Hi, I'm Valentina, and I'm an actor and voiceover artist in London.
Reading the part of Bonfield and Shoemaker is...
Hi, I'm Tamara, and I am trying to make a living from acting.
Reading the part of Kendal is...
Hi, I'm Pamela, and on a totally separate note, my flatmate's playing Kylie, so you might be able to hear that in the background.
Excellent. That's not going to confuse any issues when we put this on YouTube. So, strange advert, tracer thing, complicated things. Hopefully it won't come through. I'll try and take it out. Reading the part of Jenkin is...
Hi, I'm Liz Hill, and I'm in North Devon.
Reading the part of George, titular George Greene is...
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm an actor, writer and director, and I struggle to make a living from all three.
Reading the part of Musgrove and Justice is...
Hi, I'm Veronica, and I'm based in London.
Reading the part of Wily, Bettris and Marian is...
Liza Graham, actor, singer and Shakespearean text coach in London.
And reading the part of Armstrong and Robin is...
My name is Alexandra, and I get to play the hero of a different story.
Somewhat so spoilers, people, spoilers. Okay, and I am your host, Robert Crighton, and I, like many of the other actors here, am singularly unemployed at the moment. Available for weddings, bar mitzvahs, and any other social events when the lockdown ends. To be honest, the last time I told a story at a wedding, it went horribly, horribly wrong. So we won't move. We'll pause there and move forward. We are in Act 2, Scene 3. We've just had the capture of King James in the previous scene, but here we are in a different part of the landscape as enter George Greene.
The sweet content of men that live in love breeds fretting humours in a restless mind, and fancy, being checked by fortune's spite, grows too impatient in her sweet desires. Sweet to those men whom love leads on to bliss, but sour to me, whose hap is still amiss.
Enter Jenkin.
Marry, amen, sir.
Sir, what do you cry amen at?
Why, did not you talk of love?
How do you know that?
Well, though I say it that should not say it, there are few fellows in our parish so nettled with love as I have been of late.
Sarah, I thought no less, when the other morning you rose so early to go to your wenches. Sir, I had thought you had gone about my honest business.
Trow, you have hit it. For master, be it known to you, there is some goodwill betwixt Madge the saucewife and I. Marry, she hath another lover.
Canst thou brook any rivals in thy love?
A rider? No, he is a sow-gelder and goes afoot. But Madge pointed to meet me in your wheat close.
Well, did she meet you there?
Oh, never make question of that. At first, I saluted her with a green gown, and after fell as hard a wooing as if the priest had been at our backs to have married us.
What did she grant?
Did she grant? Never make question of that. And she gave me a shirt collar, wrought over with no counterfeit stuff.
Oh, what? Was it gold?
Nay, 'twas better than gold.
What was it?
Right Coventry blue. We'd no sooner come there, but what you came by?
No. Who?
Clem, the sow-gelder.
Came he by?
He spied Madge and I sit together. He leapt from his horse, laid his hand on his dagger and began to swear. Now I, seeing he had a dagger, and I nothing but this twig in my hand, I gave him fair words and said nothing. He comes to me, takes me by the bosom. You whoreson slave, said he, hold my horse, and look he take no cold in his feet. No, marry shall he, sir, quoth I. I'll lay my cloak underneath him. I took my cloak, spread it all along, and his horse on the midst of it.
Thou clown, didst thou set his horse upon my cloak?
Aye, but mark how I served him. Madge and he was no sooner gone down into the ditch, but I plucked out my knife, cut 4 holes in my cloak, and made his horse stand on the bare ground.
'Twas well done. Now, sir, go survey my fields. If you find any cattle in the corn, to pound with them.
And if I find any in the pound, I shall turn them out.
I'm just going to briefly pause there mid-scene. We have some comedies back and forth here, some of which is quite clear, some of which slightly gets lost in translation, I felt. But it's very much George is there as the feed, and Jenkin is there to deliver the punchlines, isn't he? He's doing the comedy business. Thoughts about that? Anyone want to leap in on that before we move forward? Anyone bursting with ideas? Sarah?
It was, I mean, it was easier for me because I was reading the feed lines, but it felt very natural. It felt very conversational.
Yeah. Is that an accent thing, do you think, that you're putting 2 strong dialect-type accents together with "Canst thou brook any rivals in their love"? A rider? No, he's a sow-gelder. He goes afoot. You know that.
Could be. Also, I think the shortness of the lines. Right. I mean, even in Jenkins' big speech, the lines are quite choppy. It's quite back and forth, and I don't know. Yeah.
Every village should have one.
Yeah. I mean, the gag there, the rivals and rider, works really well. The elements of the horse business sort of works. I felt it didn't quite land though.
Well, the sow-gelder is in one place said to go afoot, and then a few lines later he has a horse. If I were directing this play, this is one of the scenes, one of the very few places where cuts might be made depending on how it worked in rehearsal and what got said. And I don't know, rather than Clem the sow-gelder, I might have it be one of the rebel nobles on the horse, just to tie it up with the other bits of the plot. But far be it from me to supersede Robert Greene.
There seems to be stuff that lands well, and some stuff there that needs work, or there's questions to answer, and as to whether a modern audience will get that, even with gestures. Yes, Liz.
Yeah, I was wondering about whether I'm sure there must be some sort of sexual meaning with green gown and shirt collar. Or maybe I'm wrong, but...
A green gown was when you threw someone down in the grass and got grass stains on their gown. From naughtiness.
Hey. Oh, right. Excellent.
I love the little connotation you put onto twig in his hand as well.
Like that, well, yes.
That was all yours.
You've also got the oxymoron there. You would not have a sow gelder.
Oh, well,
Oh,
yes.
that's absolutely
Yes.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if Saugelder might be a malapropism for some other profession.
I'm not sure, but there is certainly an inconsistency there.
Yeah.
In the job titles.
Yeah, it's not got to do with. I mean, this is a way too long shot, I think. But I know because my dad's from a farm. They used to castrate the little pigs because then the meat would taste like a sow's meat.
Ah. So gelded boars might become sows by default, even though they weren't.
Gelder to make a sow rather than a sow gelder. Yes, that makes sense. That's
a really good
excellent.
note.
That's a great
really
one.
good note.
Not
Thank
out there
you.
at all. Love that.
Okay.
However, that's a very short aside. Let's get back to the plot. So, Seed is not over by any stretch of the imagination, because enter unto George, the Earl of Kendal, Lord Bonfield, Sir Gilbert Armstrong, all disguised with a train of men.
Now we have put the horses in the corn. Let us stand in some corner for to hear what braving terms the pinner will breathe when he spies our horses in the corn.
Retires with the others. Re-enter Jenkin, blowing his horn.
Oh, master, where are you? We have a prize.
A prize? What is it?
3 goodly horses in our wheat close.
3 horses in our wheat close? Whose be they?
Mary, that's a riddle to me, but they are there. Velvet horses, and I never saw such horses before. As my duty was, I put off my cap and said as followeth, My masters, what do you make in our close? One of them, hearing me ask what he made there, held up his head and neighed, and after his manner laughed as heartily as if a mare had been tied to his girdle. My masters, said I, it is no laughing matter, for if my master take you here, you go as round as a top to the pound. Another untoward jade, hearing me threaten him to the pound and to tell you of them, cast up both his heels and let such a monstrous great fart that was as much as in his language to say a fart for the pound and a fart for George of Greene. Now I, hearing this, put on my cap, blew my horn, called them all jades, and came to tell you.
Now, sir, go and drive me those 3 horses to the pound.
Do you hear I were best to take a constable with me?
Why so?
Why, they being gentlemen's horses may stand on their reputation and will not obey me.
Go. Do as I bid you, sir.
Well, I may go.
The Earl of Kendal, Lord Benfield, and Sir Gilbert Armstrong come forward.
Whither away, sir?
Whither away? I am going to put the horses in the pound.
Sir, those 3 horses belong to us, and we put them in, and they must tarry there and eat their fill.
Stay, I will go tell my master. Hear you, master, we have another prize. Those 3 horses be in your wheat close still, and here be 3 geldings more.
What be these?
These are the masters of the horses.
No. Now, gentlemen, I know not your degrees, but more you cannot be, lest you be kings. Why wrong you us of Wakefield with your horses? I am the pinner, and before you pass, you shall make good the trespass they have done.
Peace, saucy mate, prate not to us. I tell thee, pinner, we are gentlemen.
Why, sir, so may I, sir, although I give no alms.
Thou, how art thou a gentleman?
And such is my master, and he may give as good arms as ever your great-grandfather could give.
Pray thee, let me hear how.
Mary, my master may give for his arms the picture of April in a green jerkin, with a rook on one fist and a horn on the other. But my master gives his arms the wrong way, for he gives the horn on his fist. And your grandfather, because he would not lose his arms, wears the horn on his own head.
Well, pinner, sith our horses be in spite of thee, they now shall feed their fill, and eat until our leisures serve to go.
Now, by my father's soul, were good King Edward's horses in the corn, they shall amend the scath or kiss the pound. Much more yours, sir, whatsoe'er you be.
Why, man, thou knowest not us? We do belong to Henry Mumford, Earl of Kendal, men that, before a month be full expired, will be King Edward's betters in the land.
King Edward's betters? Rebel, thou liest.
And he strikes him.
Villain, what hast thou done? Thou hast struck an earl.
Why, what care I? A poor man, that is true, is better than an earl, if he be false. Traitors reap no better favours at my hands.
Aye, so methinks, but thou shalt dear abide this blow. Now or never, lay hold on the pinner. Is that supposed to be a stage direction?
All the train comes forward, yeah.
It does indeed look like stage direction. Well spotted. All the train comes forward. They presumably go to lay hands on the pinner.
Stay, my lords, let us parley on these broils. Not Hercules against two, the proverb is, nor I against so great a multitude. Had not your troops come marching as they did, I would have stopped your passage unto London. But now I'll fly to secret policy.
What dost thou murmur, George?
Marry this, my lord. I muse if thou be Henry Mumford, Kendal's earl, that thou wilt do poor George Greene this wrong, ever to match me with a troop of men.
Why dost thou strike me then?
Why, my lord, measure me but by yourself. Had you a man had served you long, and heard your foe misuse you behind your back, and would not draw his sword in your defence, you would cashier him. Much more King Edward is my king, and before I'll hear him so wronged, I'll die within this place, and maintain good whatsoever I have said. And if I speak not reason in this case, what I have said, I'll maintain in this place.
Pardon, my lord, for this pinner, for trust me, he speaketh like a man of worth.
Well, George, wilt thou leave Wakefield and wend with me? I'll freely put up all and pardon thee.
Ay, my lord, considering me one thing, you will leave these arms and follow your good king.
Why, George, I rise not against King Edward, but for the poor that is oppressed by wrong. And if King Edward will redress the same, I will not offer him disparagement, but otherwise, and so let this suffice. Thou hearest the reason why I rise in arms. Now, wilt thou leave Wakefield and wend with me? I'll make thee captain of a hardy band, and, when I have my will, dub thee a knight.
Why, my lord, have you any hope to win?
Why, there is a prophecy doth say that King James and I shall meet at London, and make the king veil bonnet to us both.
If this were true, my lord, this were a mighty reason.
Why, it is a miraculous prophecy, and cannot fail.
Well, my lord, you have almost turned me. Jenkin, come hither.
Oh God, I've just lost the spot. Sorry. Sorry.
Sir, it's just sir.
Sir?
Go your ways home, sir, and drive me those 3 horses home unto my house, and pour them down a bushel of good oats.
Well, I will. Must I give these scurvy horses oats?
And exit Jenkin.
Will it please you to command your train aside?
Stand aside.
The train retires.
Now list to me. Here, in a wood not far from hence, there dwells an old man in a cave alone that can foretell what fortunes shall befall you, for he is greatly skilful in magic art. Go you 3 to him early in the morning, and question him. If he says good, why, then, my lord, I am the foremost man who will march up with your camp to London.
George, thou honourest me in this, but where shall we find him out?
My man shall conduct you to the place, but, good my lord, tell me true what the wise man saith.
That will I, as I am Earl of Kendal.
Why then, to honour George Greene the more, vouchsafe a piece of beef at my poor house. You shall have wafer cakes your fill, a piece of beef hung up since Martelmas. If that you like not, take what you bring for me.
Gramercy's, George.
And they exit. I like the way, will it please you to command your train aside? I know they probably just exit or something, but I just like I have in my mind that he says that, and Kendal says stand aside, and everyone just takes a step back. While we have secret conversations about something that is very plausible. Okay, I do have one confusion about this scene. Because Kendal and the others, they've come there to sort of semi-entrap George or confront him because of the sort of love subplot. And then none of that seems to come up, and it goes in a slightly different tangential direction. And unless there's something coming up later that explains this, it doesn't quite seem to make sense. I don't know if anyone else is feeling that or if I've missed something. Thoughts? Wave at me, people.
Well, unless it's just a ruse to get him out of the way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, I suppose if they made him a knight and gave him a band of men to command, they could command him to take the men somewhere else.
Mm. You know, they're trying to tempt
yeah, that's
him.
a little bit thin. I think it is. You're right. It is tangential.
Yeah, it's very odd that love plot seems to be connected. Maybe something's going to come up and it'll all be explained later. Other thoughts about this particular scene? We've got, there's a lot. Jenkin doing more stand-up. Whoever the clown was for this particularly liked telling stories and doing comic asides. And it's the fact that it's in prose. Part of me thinking it actually in the original script it just said, comic can insert story here. It feels like a panto script in that sense of, it's Dame ad-libs for a bit. We'll rejoin the script here. It's too late for Tarleton because there's elements of that felt quite Tarleton-esque, but it seems to be whoever the clown was for this had their own agenda.
Could it be a Tarleton tribute act?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
A lot of it about.
Yeah.
One slightly tangential point, the term pinner seems to carry some sort of implication of status, and I've got no idea what that is. Has anybody else?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, go for it, Liza.
But wait, Dan will know also, and I don't want to talk over people. Do you know, Dan?
I see a shaking head from Dan. Go for it, Liza.
All right. A pinner was someone who was licensed to catch anyone's livestock that strayed out of bounds, and he would then put them in a pinfold, and people would have to pay a fee to get them released. So it matters because the village probably only has one cornfield, and that's basically all their corn. So it sounds a bit like being a traffic warden, but as we've just seen, there's also a social justice aspect that random noblemen can't just come by and put their horses to eat someone else's corn.
Though the traffic warden angle appeals to me greatly that they've just parked a load of Volkswagens somewhere. It's just, no, you're not getting them with that. I'm not taking the clamp off until you've cleared me the fine.
More than my job's worth, Gov.
I probably wouldn't do that, but it really explains the context of what's going on in that scene. Without that information, we need to get that across to an audience. That's really quite important.
Right, that makes a heck of a lot more sense to me now.
Yeah, the whole scene now broadly makes sense in a way that elements of it doesn't without that information. Other thoughts about Kendal
well, this
go.
It seems like all the toffs are ready to be taken down in this play so far. Everybody who's been introduced who's had some status has been taken down mostly by good old George the Pinner.
Yeah.
So it's turning out to be a real humdinger of your normal bloke, the average chap, standing up to authority, which is tremendous entertainment.
It's true. That's one of the things I love about this play is the social justice aspect and the working class hero.
And, George manages to get a free hit in. It's like, if I was... what I'm hoping is that George just gets to hit and get away with hitting people repeatedly throughout this.
Exactamente.
And, that's fab. Anything else before we move into Act 3? No, all is silence. Okay, so we move into... this looks awfully familiar. First stage direction of Act 3. Enter Georgia Greene's boy, Willie, disguised as a woman. It could be Wily, I suppose, but I'm childish that way.
Oh, what is love? It is some mighty power, else could it never conquer Georgia Greene. Here dwells a churl that keeps away his love. I know the worst, and if I be espied, 'tis but a beating. If I by this means can get fair Bettris forth her father's door, it is enough. Venus for me, of all the gods alone, be aiding to my wily enterprise.
And knocks at the door. Enter Grime as from the house.
How now? Who knocks there? What would you have? From whence came you? Where do you dwell?
I am, forsooth, a sempster's maid hard by, that hath brought work home to your daughter.
Nay, are you not? Some crafty queen that comes from Georgia Greene, that rascal with some letters to my daughter? I will have you searched.
Alas, sir, it is Hebrew unto me to tell of Georgia Greene or any other. Search me, good sir, and if you find a letter about me, let me have the punishment that's due.
Why are you muffled? I like you the worse for that.
I am not, sir, ashamed to show my face, yet loath I am my cheeks should take the air. Not that I'm chary of my beauty's hue, but that I'm troubled with the toothache sore.
And unmuffles.
Oh, a pretty wench of smiling countenance. Old men can like, although they cannot love. Aye, and love, though not so brief as young men can. Well, go in, my wench, and speak with my daughter.
Exit Wily into the house.
I wonder much at the Earl of Kendal, being a mighty man as still he is, yet for to be a traitor to his king is more than God or man will well allow. But what a fool am I to talk of him? My mind is more here of the pretty lass. Had she brought some 40 pounds to town, I could be content to make her my wife. Yet I have heard it in a proverb said, he that is old and marries with a lass lies but at home and proves himself an ass.
Enter from the house Bettris in Wily's apparel.
Oh, how now, my wench? How is it? What? Not a word? Alas, poor soul, the toothache plagues her sore. Well, my wench, here's an angel for you to buy thee pins. And I pray thee use mine house, the oftener the more welcome. Farewell.
And exit Grime.
Oh, blessed love and blessed fortune both. But Bettris, stand not here to talk of love, but hie thee straight unto thy Georgia Greene. Never went roebuck swifter on the downs than I will trip it till I see my George.
And for the listeners at home, that was in fact the awkward doubling of Wily and Bettris there. So at the end, Bettris, not only did you take the clothes, but you literally became yourself. For such a short scene, it's got so much potential of lots of little bits of business. The way Grime just comes out and just 4 questions straight at you. Come on, answer them now. And then the way Grime tries to seem to have it both ways of old men can like, though they cannot love. But then, though not so brief as young men can, it's sort of, is he trying to suggest that they can't get it up, or they can get it up, but it won't get. What's he suggest? He's trying to have it both ways there. I felt, yeah, and just the potential that at what point does the audience know it is Bettris, and what's going on with Wily there? It's
maybe when she unmuffles, or I mean, who knows? When Grime exits. But if Willie plays his cards right, he could be set up for life here. Grime.
Yes, I'm going to say Grime's very keen.
Yeah.
He has to bring £40 though.
George will lend him 40.
Yeah.
He needed a solid.
It's a little bit some like it hot, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, if he's been sent there by George Greene to do this trick. So yes, I suppose George Greene does owe him. He does. Oh, who gets what out of this? Oh God. Anyway, I'm stopping now. Other thoughts in the room.
When you get to the bottom of the hole, Robert, stop digging.
Yeah, that's why I was throwing it out to anyone else. Lots of potential in that, even though, again, it's very short, but that scene is longer than it looks. Okay, we'll move on to the next scene. We have return of Kendal and the various lords and George in a moment. So enter the Earl of Kendal, Lord Bonfield, Sir Gilbert, Armstrong, and Jenkin.
Come away, Jenkin.
Come, here is his house.
Knocks at the door.
Where be you? Ho!
Who knocks there?
Here are 2 or 3 poor men, Father, would speak with you.
Pray, give your man leave to lead me forth.
Go, Jenkin, fetch him forth.
And Jenkin leads forth Georgia Greene, disguised.
Come, old man.
Father, here are 3 poor men come to question thee, a word in secret that concerns their lives.
Say on, my sons.
Father, I am sure you hear the news, how that the Earl of Kendal wars against the king. Now, Father, we 3 are gentlemen by birth, but younger brethren that want revenues, and for the hope we have to be prepared. If that we knew that we shall win, we will march with him. If not, we will not march afoot to London moor. Therefore, good Father, tell us what shall happen, whether the king or the Earl of Kendal shall win.
The king, my son.
Art thou sure of that?
Aye, as sure as thou art Henry Mumford, the one Lord Bonfield, the other Sir Gilbert Armstrong.
Why, this is wondrous. Being blind of sight, his deep perseverance should be such to know us.
Magic is mighty, and foretelleth great matters. Indeed, Father, here is the Earl come to see thee. Not with him.
Welcome is the Earl to my poor cell, and so are you, my lords. But let me counsel you to leave these wars against your king, and live quiet.
Father, we came not for advice in war, but to know whether we shall win or lose.
Lose, gentle lords, but not by good King Edward. A baser man shall give you all the foil.
Aye, marry, Father, what man is that?
Poor Georgia Greene, the pinner.
What shall he?
Pull all your plumes and sore dishonour you.
He? As how?
Nay, the end tries all, but so it will fall out.
But so it shall not. By my honour, Christ. I'll raise my camp and fire Wakefield town, and take that servile pinner Georgia Greene and butcher him before King Edward's face.
Good my lord, be not offended, for I speak no more than art reveals to me. And for greater proof, give your man leave to fetch me my staff.
Jenkin, fetch him his walking staff.
Here is your walking staff.
I'll prove it good upon your carcasses. A wiser wizard never met you yet. Nor one that better could foredoom your fall. Now I have singled you here alone. I care not though you be 3 to 1.
Villain, hast thou betrayed us?
Mumford, thou liest. Ne'er was I a traitor yet. only devised this guile to draw you on for to be combatants. Now, conquer me, and then march on to London. It shall go hard, but I will hold you task.
Come, my lord, cheerly. I'll kill him hand to hand.
£1,000 to him that strikes the stroke.
Then give it me, for I will have the first.
And in full Errol Flynn mode, here they fight. George kills Sir Gilbert Armstrong and takes the other 2 prisoners.
Stay, George, we do appeal.
To whom?
Why, to the king. For rather had we bide what he appoints, than he be murdered by servile groom.
What wilt thou do with us?
Even as Lord Bonfield wished, you shall enter the king, and for that purpose, see where the justice is placed.
Indeed, enter the justice.
Now, my lord of Kendal, where be all your threats? Even as the cause, so is the combat fallen, else one could never have conquered 3.
I pray thee, Woodruff, do not twit me. If I have faulted, I must make amends.
Master Woodruff, here is not a place for many words. I beseech ye, sir, discharge all his soldiers, that every man may go home unto his own house.
It shall be so. What wilt thou do, George?
Master Woodruff, look to your charge. Leave me to myself.
Come, my lords.
And exit all except George. And in that sense, the next scene is broken up, probably just rattles straight on. So I think we will as well. So George Greene alone.
Here sit thou, George, wearing a willow wreath, as one despairing of thy beauteous love. Fie, George, no more. Pine not away for that which cannot be. I cannot joy in any earthly bliss, so long as I do want my Bettris.
And enter Jenkin.
Who see a master of mine?
How now, Sarah? Whither away?
Whither away? Why, who do you take me to be?
Why, Jenkin, my man.
I was so once indeed, but now the case is altered.
I pray thee, as how?
Were you not you a fortune teller today?
Well, what of it?
So sure am I become a juggler. What will you say if I juggle your sweetheart?
Peace, prating Losel. Her jealous father doth wait o'er her with such suspicious eyes, that if a man but daily by her feet, he thinks it straight a witch to charm his daughter.
Well, what will you give me if I bring her hither?
A suit of green, and 20 crowns besides.
Well, by your leave, give me room. You must give me something that you have lately worn.
Here is a gown. Will that serve you?
Gives a gown.
Aye, this will serve me. Keep out of my circle, lest you be torn in pieces by she-devils. Mistress Bettris, once, twice, thrice.
And Jenkin throws the gown in, and Bettris comes out.
Oh, is this no cunning?
Is this my love, or is it but a shadow?
Aye, this is the shadow, but here is the substance.
Tell me, sweet love, what good fortune brought thee hither? For one it was that favoured Georgia Greene.
Both love and fortune brought me to my George, in whose sweet sight is all my heart's content.
Tell me, sweet love, how camest thou from thy father's?
A willing mind hath many slips in love. It was not I, but Willie, thy sweet boy.
And where is Willie now?
In my apparel, in my chamber still.
Jenkin, come hither. Go to Bradford and... Sorry, I'm cool.
Hold it together. God.
Jenkin, come hither. Go to Bradford and listen.
Don't make me come down there.
Sorry, I've corpsed.
Okay.
And listen out for your fellow Willie. Come, Bettris, let us in, and in my cottage we will sit and talk.
Okay, and there we. It's because I suggested Willy rather than Wily, and it's thrown us all astray. Now it should be pointed out that at the end of this scene, well, the play's basically over, isn't it? King of Scots been captured. All the rebels have been captured. George of Greene's got his fair mistress. Okay, they've got to sort out what's happening to poor Willy.
Hey, Willy's getting married.
Yeah, he's quite happy. It's fine. And yet there's still 2 acts to go. So we've had again that repetition of actions of fetch me my staff, fetch him his walking staff. Here is your walking staff, because it's like the audience knows a fight's going to start any second now. And this is such fabulous entertainment. The whole George setting up, he's going to be the wise man who is wise moment.
Even now in my head, he's definitely now a fox.
Yes.
But that's your own. I don't know why you'd be thinking that. There's no reason as of yet anywhere for that thought to be. The viewers of this video have no idea why you've just said that. Because the context of that was when we weren't recording.
It's so there, though. It's so there.
It will be in about a few pages' time.
Spoilers.
But yes,
I'm an old blind man.
Other thoughts about the scene? All this material that we've got here. The magic trick that seems to be doing with the gown. I'm wondering about Jenkin throwing the gown. Is it sort of as a body substitution thing, or rather than throwing it down, is it holding it up? She stands behind Stumpf. Moment. It doesn't quite read that way, but it's that kind of action.
Stage trap?
Could be.
I could tell you, but I get kicked out of the magic circle.
Then seminal text for the magic circle. This, yeah. Other thoughts about the play so far? I'd say, in a sense, the play's over. So, how have you enjoyed the entertainment so far, Alexandra?
Not exactly about the whole play, just about this last little trick that's been played by Bettris on her father, because it starts off with Willy, who is George's man, sort of being introduced to the audience and introducing what's about to happen. I very much was under the impression that George is in on this. And so it's really nice, but also strange, to see this moment where he's, not only is Beatrice revealed to him as in the plot has succeeded, but he has no idea there was a whole plot to release her. His men, more than one of his people, have been in conjunction with his lover to give him this happy ending.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if Jenkin has moved from being the village idiot to having a cunning plan, isn't it?
I think Jenkin's got plenty of brains. It's just they're not necessarily all in the right order. But yeah, you're right. I hadn't picked up on that at all. You're right. His mates love him so much, and the people of his household love him so much. They all get together.
It's kind of like Kevin Costner as Robin Hood. He always has things like that because he's such a good guy. He's doing it for everybody, and then how can we pay him back? It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
What a guy!
What a guy! Just ask Madonna.
Any other thoughts before we move on to the next act? No, everyone's very quiet.
Well, it's not over till Robin Hood gets here, is it?
Robin Hood? Who mentioned Robin Hood? Is there going to be Robin Hood?
I don't know.
You must have heard rumour that I've not seen any mention so far, so I don't know where you're coming from. Act 4, as in the script, the edition we have. Scene 1, enter King Edward, King James, Lord Warwick, Cuddy and Train.
Brother of Scotland, I do hold it hard, seeing a league of truce was late confirmed twixt you and me, without displeasure offered. You should make such invasion in my land. The vows of kings should be as oracles, not blemished with the stain of any breach, chiefly where fealty and homage willeth it.
Brother of England, rub not the sore afresh. My conscience grieves me for my deep misdeed. I have the worst. Of 30,000 men, there escaped not full 5,000 from the field.
Gramercy, Musgrove, else it had gone hard. Cuddy, I'll quit thee well while we two part.
But had not his old father, William Musgrove, played twice the man, I had not now been here. Stronger man I seldom felt before, but one of more resolute valiance treads not, I think, upon the English ground.
I wot well, Musgrove shall not lose his hire.
And it please your grace, my father was 63 at midsummer last past. Yet had King Jamie been as good as George Greene, yet Billy Musgrove would have fought with him.
As George Greene? I pray thee, Cuddy, let me question thee. Much have I heard since I came to my crown. Many in manner of a proverb say, were he as good as George Greene, I would strike him sure. I pray thee, tell me, Cuddy, canst thou inform me, what is that George Greene?
No, my lord, I never saw the man, but mickle talk is of him in the country. They say he is the pinner of Wakefield town, but for his other qualities, I let alone.
May it please your grace, I know the man too well.
Too well? Why so, Warwick?
For once he's winged me till my bones did ache.
Why, does he strike an earl?
An earl, my lord? Nay, he will strike a king, be it not King Edward. For stature he's framed like to the picture of stout Hercules, and for his carriage passeth Robin Hood. The boldest earl or baron of your land that offereth scath unto the town of Wakefield, George will arrest his pledge unto the pound, and whoso resisteth bears away the blows, for he himself is good enough for 3.
Why, this is wondrous, my lord of Warwick. Sore do I long to see this George Greene. But leaving him, what shall we do, my lord, for to subdue the rebels in the north? They are now marching up to Doncaster.
Enter one with the Earl of Kendal, prisoner.
Soft. Who have we there?
Here is a traitor, the Earl of Kendal.
Aspiring traitor, how darest thou once cast eyes upon thy sovereign that honoured thee with kindness and with favour? But I will make thee buy this treason dear.
But my lord.
Reply not, traitor. Tell me, Cuddy, whose deed of honour won the victory against this rebel?
George Greene, the pinner of Wakefield.
George Greene. Now shall I hear news certain what this pinner is. Discourse it briefly, Cuddy, how it befell.
Kendal and Bonfield, with Sir Gilbert Armstrong, came to Wakefield town disguised, and there spoke ill of your grace, which George, but hearing, felled them at his feet. And had not rescue come into the place, George had slain them in his close of wheat.
But Cuddy, canst thou not tell where I might give and grant something that might please and highly gratify the pinner's thoughts?
This, at their parting, George did say to me, if the king vouchsafe of this my service, then, gentle Cuddy, kneel upon thy knee and humbly crave a boon of him for me.
Cuddy, what is it?
It is his will your grace would pardon them, and let them live although they have offended.
I think the man striveth to be glorious. Well, George hath craved it, and it shall be granted, which none but he in England should have gotten. Live, Kendal, but as a prisoner. so shalt thou end thy days within the tower.
Gracious is Edward to offending subjects.
My lord of Kendal, you're welcome to the court.
Nay, but ill come as it falls out now. Aye, ill come indeed, were it not for George of Greene, the gentle king. So you both would have and Edward's betters, I salute you both. And here I vow by good St. George, you'll gain but little when your sums are counted. I sore do long to see this George of Greene, and for because I never saw the north, I will forthwith go see it. And for that to none I will be known, we will disguise ourselves and steal down secretly. Thou and I, King James, Cuddy, and 2 or 3, and make a merry journey for a month. Away then, conduct him to the tower. Come on, King James, my heart must needs be merry, if fortune makes us havoc of our foes.
And they exit. So we've got some more disguises coming up, people. This play really loves its disguises. It's quite a lot of people mentioned in passing of dying, which I think that's 2 lines I kind of want to cut. I don't normally say, the play or what I'd want to change about it, but I just feel that I don't want to know that lots of people have just died off stage in this very merry play. And I just feel those 2 lines go. I'm not keen on them. Yeah, all roads lead to George of Greene. Thoughts, people?
I guess you have to explain why the other 2 that we didn't see George kill aren't here, and the answer is because they're doubling other parts. But
well, the other 2 are just prisoners somewhere else. I mean, you don't have to have lots of people dying, being mentioned of a battle. We don't need a battle. They're just rubbish, and they all fall apart. That's my headcanon. Sorry, other thoughts.
He's just so nice, isn't he? I mean, it's like, oh, what was the boon he wanted? Oh, it was to let them go free, don't execute them, let them live their lives. He's just like, oh, George, what a hero.
Is King Edward really that impressed, or is King Edward slightly annoyed about the fact that everyone's talking about George of Greene? I just throwing that out there. Thoughts?
Well, it would be a nice counterpart, wouldn't it, to all the niceness if he showed a bit of irritation.
Because it's like everyone...
Not him again.
Yeah, there is. It's like, oh, it's him. They mentioned it. We were talking about something else. You were going to tell us something else. You told me about George of Greene again. Great. Lovely. And it's just the way that Kendal worked. Kendal says almost nothing in this scene at all. He's brought on, and then it's just, shut up.
It's also, though, that his ally, King James, is sitting there in court with King Edward being all pally.
Yes.
They're supposed to meet...
Something to do with him having lost 25,000 men, possibly.
Sure, yeah, no, I get it. But Kendal's probably a bit like, damn, we were supposed to be meeting up, and,
Well, I don't know. Is King James's line there completely? It's almost like you're welcome to the same prison cell as me. I know he's about to go gallivanting off, but I wondered whether it was,
maybe,
the court of my prison cell.
Yeah, I thought that was the way he was saying it. It's like, welcome to the tower. It's not a bad place.
Yeah,
get everything you want. Shame about the 25,000, but still.
Yeah. It was worth a shot.
All right, we did our best.
Exactly.
Ed's not a bad buy. I like Edward.
And Warwick. When Warwick says those lines about "he swinged me till my bones did ache," and I'm sort of going, "Have we met Warwick before? Have we seen this?" I thought that was somebody else, and I'm sort of there's an element there that I sort of find slightly odd. I mean, it's perfectly reasonable that also happened, but...
This George of Greene seems to have beaten a lot of people.
Yeah. And yet everyone loves him.
Yeah.
And he's more famous than Robin Hood, apparently.
Yeah.
As we'll see.
As we'll see. Will we? You know, obviously Robin Hood's the most famous outlaw of the land, and yeah, you know, this guy he's coming up on the inside. That's what he's doing. He's coming up on the inside.
But this guy is not an outlaw.
Hmm?
I said, but this guy is not an outlaw.
No.
Just following up on exactly what you said. So it's almost like, you know, he's not competing because they're not in the same category.
Yeah.
I wanted to draw attention to that bit at the end of what King Edward says, where he basically goes, and because I never saw the North, why don't we all go there in disguise and steal down secretly with King James, who is, you know, his who is the loser of this entire sort of arrangement, and until 5 minutes ago, his foe, again, 25,000 people. Yeah, that one I, King James. Let's go have some fun.
Yeah, it's a sort of King's gap year.
Gap year.
Like the scene is there to wrap up the rebellion aspect of it, but it's not. Although it's giving us this serious information of, you know, characters you've seen before, yeah, they're dead, and, you know, actually off stage, lots of people are dead. But on the other hand, let's not care about them.
Yeah.
They're only Scotsmen.
Oh, do not say such things in this room.
I love Scotsmen very much.
You've just quietly dismissed 25,000 of them.
Fictional. They only existed for one line.
Talking of fictional,
I agree that's what the play is doing.
Yeah.
It's basically going, you know, yes, but they're not important because they're from the other side.
And talking of fictional, we've got he vows by St. George, and that's another little callback to a certain kind of mythic, heroic figure. Before moving on to go on, and, you know, go to the dressing up box and go forward. The next scene, yes, it's the let's put it out there, people. Robin Hood, riding through the glen. Except, of course, he's not, because that would be an incredibly stupid thing to do on horseback. A glen's not the terrain for fast horse riding. It's just a disaster. And for goodness sake, he's supposed to be based in a forest where the terrain doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, I am critiquing something that has nothing to do with this play, but I just want to just fundamentally just raise that important issue. The idea of Robin Hood riding through the glen is just, as an opening gambit, is just so stupid. Anyway.
Get it off your chest, Rob.
It rhymes with men.
Anyway.
Yes.
Next scene. Enter Robin Hood, Maid Marian, Scarlet, and Much. And Robin is a bit worried about his reputation.
Yes, just before we start reading this, may I ask, how would you like me to pronounce the lemon word? Second line.
Lehman.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do it as lemon, but
it's just yes.
It's one of those ones where we've played with this word before, and we're never quite sure precisely where to land with it, because sometimes it's just too comic to go with lemon.
Well, yes. I'm just going to say yes. Okay. Why is not lovely Marian blithe of cheer? What ails my leman that she gins to lower? Say, good Marian, why art thou so sad?
Nothing, my Robin, grieves me to the heart. But whensoever I do walk abroad, I hear no songs but all of Georgia Greene. Bettris, his fair leman, passeth me, and this, my Robin, galls my very soul.
Content, what recks it us, though Georgia Greene be stout, so long as he doth proffer us no scathe? Envy doth seldom hurt but to itself, and therefore, Marian, smile upon thy Robin.
Never will Marian smile upon her Robin, nor lie with him under the greenwood shade, till that thou go to Wakefield on a green, and beat the pinner for the love of me.
Content thee, Marian, I will ease thy grief. My merry men and I will thither stray. And here I vow that, for the love of thee, I will beat Georgia Greene, or he shall beat me.
As I am Scarlet, next to Little John, one of the boldest yeomen of the crew. So I will wend with Robin all along and try this pinner what he dares to do.
As I am much the miller's son, that left my mill to go with thee, and ill repent what I have done, this pleasant life contenteth me. In aught I may to thee do good, I'll live and die with Robin Hood.
And Robin, Marian will go with thee, to see fair Bettris, how bright she is of blee.
Marian, thou shalt go with thy Robin. Bend up your bows, and see your strings be tight, the arrows keen, and everything be ready, and each of you a good butt on his neck, able to lay a good man on the ground.
I will have Friar Tuck's.
I will have Little John's.
I will have one made of an ashen plank, able to bear a bout or two. Then come on, Marian, let us go, for before the sun doth show the morning day, I will be at Wakefield to see this pinner, Georgia Greene.
And they exit. And I don't know if anyone else is seeing Kermit and Miss Piggy in this scene. It's
ITCH.
it's just the way that Marian is just going, our status is being undermined. We're not getting as many followers on Twitter as George is.
Look, they said she was prettier.
Mostly she's just like, apparently Beatrice is prettier than me. Go beat up Georgia Greene because that can't.
Yeah, it's very it's not childish at all. No.
And basically, Robin doesn't seem to be too fussed about it until she starts off on one.
She says she won't lie with him under the greenwood tree. That's what makes him pay attention. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
the old
enough to make any man take his staff in his hand.
Yeah, indeed.
The old Lysistrata ploy.
Yeah, it's there's all sorts of things I can say about Robin Hood, which I'll do towards the end. And it's all very much fits in with this very well. Other thoughts about this this little band of merry travellers?
It's very unexpected, isn't it? I mean, you see Robin Hood's retreat, so you have another image of what might transpire, but it's completely random.
It is and it isn't. Though I'll qualify that a little later on. In a sense, this is a very, very accurate depiction of the kinds of Robin Hoods that are available. But yeah, they really have popped in. They're really not happy, are they? You know, their cred's been. You know, they've built a very clear narrative thread, and this new upstart is getting in the way.
There's a strange thing that's happening to the verse. It migrates towards a different style. You know, it starts sounding like the rest of the play, and by the time you get to Much's speech, it's the meter has changed and
the dramatis,
the beat. Go on.
Oh, sorry. One of our earliest sources for the Robin Hood legend in England is the Child Ballads, and the rhythm that Much ends up using echoes those. Sort of like the rhythm that Bettris used in her first scene when she said that little 4-line quatrain about George. And it's a deliberate callback to an older style of English versification, a more folky style.
Yes, and we will be calling on that a little later on as well. So let us, for the moment, however, move forward because we've got a Shoemaker. There's still lots of action coming. Scene 3, a shoemaker is discovered at work. Enter Jenkin carrying a staff.
My master, he that hath neither meat nor money, and hath lost his credit with the alewife, for anything I know, may go supperless to bed. But soft, who is here? Here is a shoemaker. He knows where is the best ale. Shoemaker, I pray thee tell me, where is the best ale in the town?
A fool, follow thy nose at the sign of the eggshell.
Come, shoemaker, if thou wilt, and take thy part of a pot.
Sarah, down with your staff, down with your staff.
Why? How now? Is the fellow mad? I pray thee tell me, why should I hold down my staff?
You will down with him, will you not, sir?
Why, tell me wherefore.
My friend, this is the town of Mary Bradford, and here is a custom held that none shall pass with his staff on his shoulders, but he must have a bout with me. And so shall you, sir.
And so will I not, sir.
That will I try. Barking dogs bite not the sorest.
Oh, would to God I were once well rid of him.
Now, what? Will you drown with your staff?
Why, you are not in earnest, are you?
If I'm not, take that.
And he strikes him.
You whoreson, cowardly scab. It is but the part of a clapper-dudgeon to strike a man in the street. But darest thou walk to the town's end with me?
Aye, that I dare do, but stay till I lay in my tools, and I will go with thee to the town's end presently.
I would I knew how to be rid of this fellow.
Come, sir, will you go to the town's end now, sir?
Aye, sir, come. Now we are at the town's end. What say you now?
Marry, come, let us even have a bout.
Ah, stay a little. Hold thy hands, I pray thee.
Why, what's the matter?
Faith, I am underpinner of a town, and there is an order which if I do not keep, I shall be turned out of mine office.
What is that, sir?
Whensoever I go to fight with anybody, I used to flourish my staff thrice about my head before I strike, and then show no favour.
Well, sir, until then I will not strike thee.
Well, sir, here is once, twice. Here is my hand. I will never do it the third time.
Why, then I see we shall not fight.
Faith, no. Come, I will give thee 2 pots of the best ale, and be friends.
Faith, I see it is as hard to get water out of a flint as to get him to have a bout with me. Therefore, I will enter into him for some good cheer. My friend, I see thou art a faint-hearted fellow. Thou hast no stomach to fight. Therefore, let us go to the alehouse and drink.
Well, content. Go thy ways and say thy prayers. Thou escapest my hands today.
And they exit. Thoughts about this scene?
Is that literally how Robin Hood gets to know Little John?
The idea that possibly that there's some kind of genre bleed between characters is entirely possible, yes.
They have already mentioned Little John, though, haven't they, in the previous scene?
Well, this might be the
So a preemptive.
the mirror verse.
But if they know of the deeds of others and that there is some sort of competition going on, maybe there's a deliberate attempt to emulate, perhaps.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, emulate really randomly. It reminded me a bit of Sir Didymus, for those of you who get the reference.
Dark crystal.
Labyrinth. Yes. None shall pass without my permission. Well, can we have your permission? Yes.
I love him so much.
Yes, there does seem to be a point that the narrative logic is possibly breaking down a bit, and that things are just sort of happening, which is delightful. Any other thoughts?
Logic? What logic? We're here for stupid jokes and quarterstaff fights.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. Monty Python.
Yep.
Just the flesh wound.
Other thoughts?
That was a different play.
I hope I didn't misunderstand this, but I feel like it's a fight that doesn't happen. Right? It's
right.
Let's go over there. Okay, let me just put my tools down. All right, and now let's fight. Right. Well, at first I have to swirl my stick, and then I just won't get to the end. Right. All right.
Let's go for a pint.
Yeah, but as far as I remember, in the I mean, everybody correct me because I don't know that much about it in terms of history. But as far as I remember, as in historical writings of it and the ballad, but Robin Hood gets really badly beaten by Little John as well, really quickly. Like, it's a really crappy fight.
Well, I'm trying to hold back at the moment of talking too much about some of the other plays with Robin Hood, folk plays that exist. Is that Robin Hood is perennially rubbish. He's constantly getting in a fight and then going, John, come in now. The figure, because it's a lot more playful and you don't necessarily have as much plot going on. That I don't know if that feels familiar to anyone. That stuff can happen for the sake of what is happening in the scene and the setup without necessarily fitting too much into the overall narrative. I will speak of this more anon. Let us move on. Enter George Greene and Bettris.
Tell me, sweet love, how is thy mind content? What, canst thou brook to live with George Greene?
Oh, George, how little pleasing are these words. Came I from Bradford for the love of thee, and left my father for so sweet a friend? Here will I live until my life do end.
Happy am I to have so sweet a love, but what are these come tracing here along?
3 men come striking through the corn, my love.
Uh-oh, here comes Robin Hood, Maid Marian and Scarlet and much.
Back again, you foolish travellers, for you are wrong, and may not wend this way.
That were great shame. Now, by my soul, proud sir, we be 3 tall yeomen, and thou art but 1. Come, we will forward in despite of him.
Leap the ditch, or I will make you skip. What, cannot the highway serve your turn, but you must make a path over the corn?
Why art thou mad? Darest thou encounter 3? We are no babes, man. Look upon your limbs.
Sirrah, the biggest limbs have not the stoutest hearts. Were ye as good as Robin Hood and his 3 merry men, I'll drive you back the same way that ye came. But ye men, ye scorn to encounter me all at once. But be ye cowards, set upon me all 3, and try the pinner what he dares perform.
Were thou as high in deeds as thou art haughty in words, thou well mightest be a champion for the king. But empty vessels have the loudest sounds, and cowards prattle more than men of worth.
Sirrah, darest thou try me?
Aye, sirrah, that I dare.
Muted.
Robert is muted.
And they fight, and George Greene beats him.
Come.
Much, I think, next, isn't it?
Yeah, how now? What, art thou down? Come, sir, I am next.
And they fight, doing a very 80s one person fighting after the other, and George Greene beats him.
Sirrah, now to me, spare me not, for I'll not spare thee.
Make no doubt, I will be as liberal to thee.
They fight. Robin Hood stays the course.
Stay, George, for here do I protest thou art the stoutest champion that ever I laid hands upon.
Soft you, sir, by you leave you lie. You never yet laid hands on me.
George, wilt thou forsake Wakefield and go with me? 2 liveries will I give thee every year, and 40 crowns shall be thy fee.
Why? Who art thou?
By Robin Hood. I am come hither with my Marian, and these my yeomen, for to visit thee.
Robin Hood! Next to King Edward, art thou lief to me? Welcome, sweet Robin. Welcome, Maid Marian, and welcome you, my friends. Will you to my poor house?
Uh-oh.
You shall have wafer cakes your fill, a piece of beef hung up since Martelmas, mutton and veal. If this like you not, take that you find, all that you bring for me.
God a mercy's good George. I'll be thy guest today.
Robin, therein thou honourest me. I'll lead the way.
And George does his best fanboy impression. Oh my God, it's Robin!
In a scene that's almost a complete rewrite of the sequence with the three lords earlier.
Exactly. So I
Well-
don't know how long away Martelmas was, but it seems like a long time because he's been using this one
Martelmas
for
beef.
a while.
If-
Right? Martelmas beef is
Yeah,
pretty
well,
tough, I think.
because
So-
that gets a name check in Faustus. Martelmas beef.
The 4 lines about the food do recur both in the Lord's scene and in this one. I would probably cut them from the Lord's scene and just have them here.
No, I think it's vital you have it both because it's a case of he offers it to the lords, but then he said, "Oh no, I've still got the stuff. I've got all this stuff. They didn't eat anything last time. You can have the good stuff." I think the repetition's vital.
Yeah, it also made me think, the minute I read that, I was going, oh, hang on a second. The other people he offered this to did not end well. After, what's he up to?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Oh.
Also,
Yeah,
can
that's
I
what I
point
thought,
out,
yeah.
could I just point out the line, 3 men come striking through the corn, my love, and then enter 3 men and a woman.
Mm-hmm. Not
So
mentioned.
yes, it's either 4 people because they're too far away, or there's some reason why 3 men and that creature that people say looks better than me.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, Marian has a lot to say in this scene. Okay, we are into the closing straight, final act, and I think it's pretty much one long scene. So let us see what happens, because we have the re-entrance of King Edward and King James disguised, and each carrying a staff.
Come on, King James. Now we're thus disguised, there's none I know will take us to be kings. I think we are now in Bradford, where all the merry shoemakers dwell.
Enter several shoemakers.
Down with your staves, my friends, down with them.
Down with our staves? I pray thee, why so?
My friend, I see thou art a stranger here, else wouldst thou not have questioned of the thing. This is the town of merry Bradford, and here hath been a custom kept of old, that none may bear his staff upon his neck, but trail it all along throughout the town, unless they mean to have a bout with me.
But hear you, sir, hath the king granted you this custom?
King or Kaiser, none shall pass this way, except King Edward. No, not the stoutest groom that haunts his court, therefore down with your staves.
What were we best to do?
Faith, my lord, they are stout fellows, and because we will see some sport, we will trail our staves.
Hearest thou, my friend? Because we are men of peace and travellers, we are content to trail our staves.
The way lies before you, go along.
Enter Robin Hood and George Greene, also disguised.
See, George, 2 men are passing through the town, 2 lusty men, and yet they trail their staves.
Robin, they are some peasants tricked in yeoman's weeds. Hello, you travellers!
Call you us, sir?
Aye, you. Are you not big enough to bear your bats upon your necks, but you must trail them along the streets?
Yes, sir, we are big enough, but here is a custom kept, that none may pass his staff upon his neck, unless he trail it at the weapon's point. Sir, we are men of peace, and love to sleep in our whole skins, and therefore quietness is best.
Base-minded peasants, worthless to be men. What, have you bones and limbs to strike a blow, and be your hearts so faint you cannot fight? Were it not for shame, I would rub your shoulders well, and teach you manhood against another time.
Shoemaker.
I'm muted. Well preached, Sir Jack, down with your staff.
Do you hear, my friends? Can you be wise? Keep down your staves, for all the town will rise upon you.
Thou speakest like an honest, quiet fellow. But hear you me, in spite of all the swains of Bradford town, bear me your staves upon your necks, or to begin with all, I'll baste you both so well, you were never better basted in your lives.
We will hold up our staves.
George Greene fights with the Shoemakers and beats them all down.
What? Have you any more? Call all your town forth. Cut and Longtail.
The Shoemakers recognise George Greene.
What? George Greene, is it you? A plague found you. I think you long to swing me well. Come, George, we will crush a pot before we part.
A pot? You slave. We will have 100. Here, Will Perkins, take my purse. Fetch me a stand of ale and set it in the marketplace that all may drink that are athirst this day. For this is for a fee to welcome Robin Hood to Bradford town.
A stand of ale is brought out and they fall a-drinking.
Here, Robin, sit thou here, for thou art the best man at the board this day. You that are strangers, place yourselves where you will. Robin, here's a carouse to good King Edward's self, and they that love him not, I would we had the basting of them a little.
And enter the Earl of Warwick with other noblemen bringing out the king's garments. Then George Greene and the rest kneel down to the king. Ta-da!
Come, masters, ale, fellows. Nay, Robin, you are the best man at the board today. Rise up, George.
Nay, good my liege, ill-nurtured were we then. Though we Yorkshiremen be blunt of speech and little skilled in court or such quaint fashions, yet nature teacheth us duty to our king. Therefore I humbly beseech you, pardon George Greene.
And, good my lord, a pardon for poor Robin, and for us all a pardon, good King Edward.
Pray you, a pardon for the Shoemakers?
I frankly grant a pardon to you all.
And they rise.
And, George Greene, give me thy hand. There's none in England that shall do thee wrong. Even from my court I came to see thyself, and now I see that fame speaks naught but truth.
I humbly thank your royal majesty. That which I did against the Earl of Kendal, 'twas but a subject's duty to his sovereign, and therefore little merits such good words.
But ere I go, I'll grace thee with good deeds. Say what King Edward may perform, and thou shalt have it, being in England's bounds.
I have a lovely leman, as bright of blears as the silver moon, and old Grime, her father, will not let her match with me because I am a pinner, although I love her, and she me, dearly.
Where is she?
At home, at my poor house, and vows never to marry unless her father give consent, which is my great grief, my lord.
If this be all, I will dispatch it straight. I'll send for Grime and force him to give his grant. He will not deny King Edward such a suit.
Enter Jenkin.
Ho! Who saw a master of mine? Oh, he has gotten into company, and a body should rake hell for company.
Peace, ye slave! See where King Edward is.
George, what is he?
I beseech your grace pardon him. He is my man.
Sirrah, the king hath been drinking with us and did pledge us to.
Hath he so? Kneel. I dub you, gentlemen.
Beg it off the king, Jenkin.
I will. I beseech your worship, grant me one thing.
What is that?
Hark in your ear.
And he whispers to King Edward in the ear.
Go your ways and do it.
Come, down on your knees. I have got it.
Well, let us hear what it is first.
Marry, because you have drunk with the king, and the king hath so graciously pledged you, you shall be no more called shoemakers. But you and yours, to the world's end, shall be called the trade of the gentle craft.
I beseech your majesty, reform this which he hath spoken.
I beseech your worship, consume this which he hath spoken.
Confirm it, you would say. Well, he hath done it for you. It is sufficient. Come, George, we will go to Grime and have thy love.
I am sure your worship will abide, for yonder is coming old Musgrove, and mad Cuddy his son. Master, my fellow Willie comes dressed like a woman, and Master Grime will marry Willie. Here they come.
Enter Musgrove and Cuddy, Grime, Wily disguised as a woman, Maid Marian, and Bettris.
Which is thy old father, Cuddy?
This, if it please your majesty.
And Musgrove kneels.
Ah, old Musgrove, stand up. It fits not such grey hairs to kneel.
Long live my sovereign, long and happy be his days. Vouchsafe, my gracious lord, a simple gift at Billy Musgrove's hand. King James at Middleton Castle gave me this. This won the honour, and this give I thee.
And gives a sword to King Edward.
God a mercy, Musgrove, for this friendly gift. And that for thou feldest a king with this same weapon, this blade shall here dub valiant Musgrove knight.
Alas, what hath your highness done? I am poor.
To mend thy living, take thou Middleham Castle, and hold of me. And if thou want living, complain, thou shalt have more to maintain thine estate. George, which is thy love?
This, if it please your majesty.
Art thou her aged father?
I am, and it's like your majesty.
Wilt not give thy daughter unto George?
Yes, my lord, if he will let me marry this lovely lass.
What sayest thou, George?
With all my heart, my lord, I give consent.
Then I give my daughter unto George.
Then shall the marriage soon be at an end. Witness, my lord, if that I be a woman.
And Wily throws off his disguise.
For I am Willie, boy to Georgia Greene, who for my master wrought this subtle shift.
What is it, a boy? What sayest thou to this, Grime?
Marry, my lord, I think this boy hath more knavery than all the world besides.
Ooh.
Yet I am content that George shall have both my daughter and my lands.
Now, George, it rests. I gratify thy worth, and therefore here I do bequeath to thee in full possession half that Kendal hath. And what as Bradford holds of me in chief, I give it frankly unto thee forever. Kneel down, George.
What will your majesty do?
Dub thee a knight, George.
I beseech your grace, grant me one thing.
What is that?
Then let me live and die a yeoman still. So was my father, so must live his son. For 'tis more credit to men of base degree to do great deeds than men of dignity.
Well, be it so, George.
I beseech your grace, dispatch with me and set down my ransom.
Georgia Greene, set down the King of Scots his ransom.
I beseech your grace, pardon me, it passeth my skill.
Do it, the honour's thine.
Then let King James make good those towns which he hath burnt upon the borders. Give a small pension to the fatherless, whose fathers he calls murdered in those wars. Put in pledge for these things to your grace, and so return.
King James, are you content?
I'm content and like your majesty, and will leave good castles in security.
I crave no more. Now, Georgia Greene, I'll to thy house, and when I have supped, I'll go to ask and see if Jane of Barley be so fair as good King James reports for her to be. And for the ancient custom of veiled staff, keep it still, claim privilege from me. If any ask a reason why or how, say English Edward veiled his staff to you.
And thus the play ends. And if ever there was a suggestion that this is Edward IV, that last speech does suggest it rather clearly. I was when he's saying to George, what do you set down to King James as ransom? I was suddenly very afraid for his boy servant. I that was just me. Okay. As with the last play that we looked at the end of the play, we have a sudden crazy fight scene with multiple people. I mean, it's not just, it is full Crazy 88 Kill Bill style here, isn't it? George Greene fights with the Shoemakers and beats them all down. It's not one at a time here. This is a ridiculous fight scene of epic proportions, which damn well should be. And then they all get drunk.
It's also all quarterstaffs, right? Interesting.
Yeah. So nobody's going to get killed. They're all just going to beat themselves up. So that's the play as it is. Thoughts about the play? Thoughts about that ending?
Poor old Jaina Barley.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Is it a play or is it about three?
Oh, I think it's a play. It just contains multitudes.
I was just wondering about the thing about trailing the staves and everything. Is that possibly based in anything that actually existed? Because that initial scene with Jenkins and the Shoemaker, I didn't quite understand what was going. I didn't have the image, but then afterwards it's explained that the staves have to be trailed on the ground rather than. Presumably they're holding. I don't know how they were holding them, but on their shoulders or something.
Up over their shoulders, most likely.
Yeah. So I'm assuming it's something. I don't have anything long enough, but something along those lines.
Something like that.
Oh,
or like
your
that.
stickers up.
Lisa's got something. She's got one.
Yeah.
We're all playing around with sticks now.
Yeah, there we
Excellent.
go.
We can fight.
I have a sword. Don't bring a stave to a knife fight.
I have a ruler.
Hello. Maybe wouldn't.
But yeah, you had to carry it in your hand and just let it drag along the ground rather than carry it like so.
Yeah.
So was that a mark of aggression then, if you carried it like that?
Apparently in Bradford it was.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I mean, to be fair, if you carry it on your shoulder and you turn around,
That's true. You could.
and it's crowded.
Yeah.
It's true, but
Fair
also
point.
there's some suggestion, like for example, when George and Robin see the two disguised kings trailing their staves, they're like, oh, they must be peasants disguised as yeomen. So it must have been a sort of signifier of something.
It's a status thing, isn't it?
Maybe so.
Yeah. How you carry your weapon is also an indicator of the scale of weapon that you might be carrying as well, in the sense of that's an indicator of status. So, though, of course, that might just be a line to just get them engaged in some sort of dialogue, rather than something that has any deeper meaning.
Speaking of engaging in dialogue, there's an interesting thing happening in the last scene in which everybody tells Robin he's the most important person in the room and just nobody lets him speak. It's fantastic.
Well, I mean, there's clearly this big hero worship going on with George. It's like they're all going, George is this terrible threat to my status. And then he meets him, George just goes, oh my God, I'm your biggest fan. And again, give everything to Robin. He's fab. And that just seems to do some, Robin doesn't need to say anything.
Yes, but then the revelation that the king is who he is, and that the two yeomen are actually kings, leads on to, Robin standing up to kind of give the best seat to the king, and the king going, no, you're still the most important person in the room. Let's continue having a conversation that does not involve you. Or indeed any of the merry men or any of that plotline. Yeah, I found that very amusing that, these are people who, as an entire crew, they get introduced, very near the end of the story. They have a scene in which, there's a sort of trial of George's, I don't know, prowess in battle, I guess, and a recruitment. And thereafter, they're irrelevant again.
Yeah, they're thrown into the mix and playing around with sort of mythic heroes, and everyone in this is a sort of weird mythic hero. I mean, even the random Musgrove, who's hello. Here's another plot device, basically, isn't he? He's just there to capture the King of Scots.
Did his son say he was 5-3? Is that 103?
Yeah, 103. Yeah.
Yes.
So he's not just, a slightly older father figure. He's old, and yet fantastic in battle. So it's again all this mythic status thing going on here. Alan.
A complete side issue, but the name Old Musgrove may ring bells with Lisa, with a child ballad, Matty Groves. In some versions, it's known as Old Musgrove.
Or Young Musgrove.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know when that dates to. Anyway.
Now, in terms of other thoughts about the play overall, not just its crazy ending.
Just, I think it's interesting. George's "Then let me live and die a yeoman still. So was my father. So must live his son." Little message about not getting above one's station.
But also, he also declines, wealth. Presumably, the king is offering. If he gets to set King James's ransom, then presumably he'd get to keep the ransom when James paid it. The king is, but so he could set it at gold or a castle or something. But no, he just has James make restitution to the people that he hurt. That's one of the many things I love about this play, that it's very much a play about working people. That there are noblemen in it and there are kings in it, but they're either fall guys or bad guys, and I love that.
Yeah, they aren't driving. Well, a lot of them aren't driving the action, or if they do, it's only briefly, and it's all so that they can be foiled by these wonderful mass of people.
Like a shoemaker threatens to beat up the king. Nothing personal. He just threatens to beat up everyone who comes into town.
And it's just, what are they doing with their ill-gotten gains? I mean, they're buying a round. I think that's a very noble thing to do. I'm going to go around the room in a moment as we're about to enter extra time. I'm just going to say this before we do. So one of the things we have already done on the podcast is we've looked at 3 of the folk plays or short plays that are probably performed outdoors. Two of which are very close to this in time. It's sort of dated around 1560-ish, and another much earlier, which is a much more fragmentary sort of outline for a big, more sort of pitched battle Robin Hood reenactment show, which doesn't really have any proper dialogue. It just has the odd line of dialogue, and then fight happens. Pitch battle happens over here, and of which Robin, quite happily is challenged to a fight. He fights. He chops the head off the person who's just yield himself to him so that he can disguise himself as a knight. So just chops his head off. It's fine. The 2 plays from the around 1560s, to say this is all on the podcast. We have Robin Hood and Friar Tuck, which is very much the fighty Friar Tuck thing. But these 2, and there's also Robin Hood and the Potter, and they almost have a carbon copy cutout quality to some of the dialogue, in the sense that the way the plays always open is with, "Now stand ye forth, my merry men all, and hark what I shall say. Of an adventure I shall you tell, the which befell this other day." And then you can invent the rest of the play from there. Friar Tuck is quite rude chap. He gets offered. There is no maid Marian. At the end of the play, Friar Tuck is offered a woman in recompense for being beaten by Robin Hood. Friar Tuck's dialogue is interesting, I think, is the best way. This didn't get published in the 19th century. This bit got cut because people thought it was too rude. But Friar Tuck, upon seeing a lady, says, "Here is an huckle duckle, an inch above the buckle. She is a trull of trust, to serve a friar at his lust, a pricker, a prancer, a tearer of sheets, a wagger of bollocks when other men sleeps. Go home, you knaves, and lay crabs in the fire, for my lady and I will dance in the mire for very pure joy." There's quite a bawdy tradition that dances around this. Robin
It was
Hood
great
and the
fun doing it.
Yes, Robin Hood and the Potter. Robin Hood is basically running a protection racket, and goes up to a potter and says, "Oh, are these new pots? They're really nice pots, aren't they? Oh, what if someone broke them? Whoops! Oh dear! You're just going. If only someone would pay me for this to not happen. Whoops!" And that leads up to a fight. And they always lead up to a fight. And the whole point of Robin Hood stories is to lead up to a big fight. And then someone goes around and collects money from Robin Hood because he's the person who takes money. And there's lots of traditions up and down the country of which we don't have scripts for. And he gets appropriated wherever you happen to be. You don't have to be based in Sherwood. In the same way as this play is not surrounded by elements of King John or, any of those other elements, because Robin Hood has by this point become everywhere. It doesn't matter if he's not historically accurate. He is a myth, and does all sorts of fun things. So if you want to listen to those three, they are available on the podcast now. Plug ended there. Returning to the room, final thoughts. Dan, have you got any final thoughts?
Got none. It was a fun play.
I mean, if people were doing this today, where would we pitch this? Because it's a really interesting, fun piece, and there's so many sort of threads to it. I wonder where you pitch it. William, any final thoughts?
I must say, I really enjoyed Georgia Greene. A new hero, Rose, Robin Hood. I've learned a little bit more about him today now. I'm going to be listening to the podcast. Fantastic, really good romp. Well, aside from poor Jane Nabarley, yeah.
Well, nothing bad in the end actually happened. She was fine.
Except some lusty old kings coming after her. That's what's happening. I mean, how's she going to refuse that?
Yeah.
No, it's not nice. It's not nice.
No, it's true.
Maybe her
it doesn't
husband
bode
is
well.
That's the point. Maybe the husband's back.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
Maybe. Pamela, final thoughts.
I just love how every single person pretty much gets to be in disguise at some point. I was very much enjoying that. I think you could do it as a really lovely outdoor theatre show in the summer, have like a promenade thing through the forest or through villages or something to like give you that idea of moving from place to place and, continuity.
Yes, because we do have that wonderful bit in the scene with the shoemaker. We should go to the other end of the town.
Yeah. So
now we're at the other end of the town.
Yeah.
Alan, any final thoughts?
I was just thinking Lucy Worsley would love this. An excuse to get the dressing box out again.
Veronica, final thoughts?
Yes. I felt it was really enjoyable. As a blind first reading, I felt like I didn't have much to say. Like I just enjoyed listening to it, but there wasn't much giving me food for thought. It seemed like a day in the life of George with a lot of fan service, which was enjoyable. Yeah.
And maybe now George wakes up and it was all a dream. Liz, any final thoughts?
Well, I was just thinking, going back to yesterday, the idea that Bettris could be a pantomime dame. So maybe Maid Marian could be one as well in a modern production. And the other thing, I just think of this as the Brawling Boys play. Because all anyone seems to do apart from dressing up is fight. Yeah, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of fighting. Always ends in a fight. That's Robin Hood. Tamara. I won't think of Robin Hood in the same way again. That scene is fantastic. Yeah. Tamara.
I kind of want to pick up on Veronica's fan service because I just love the fact that here we were reading the play and I was like, that's a bit Robin Hood. That's a bit Robin Hood. There he is! And I think I almost want to say, couldn't this be a pantomime? Because it's so it doesn't care about anything. It's just there to have fun, and I would love to see this done, because I think it's you just switch off your brain and go with it.
It's looking in for plays to put into a repertoire. I'm sort of looking at this one going, yep, this is the Christmas show, isn't it? This would work very well as the Christmas show. Liza, final thoughts.
To me, it gives a little more of a summer show vibe. I like the idea of doing it outdoors. When I saw this read at the Globe as part of their Red Not Dead, staged reading season, I sort of fell unreasonably in love with it on that day and thought, and ever since then I've had at the back of my mind, would this work for a scratch tour of the North? Or, because plays specifically set in the North are so rare, and this one is so local. There are and you can have the posh people speaking RP, and you can have the Northerners basically having none of that, and so from today's reading I've thought, will I still like it as much, and would it work? And I think maybe it would, if it were done well and in a fun way. There are only a few cuts that I would think of making, and those would maybe be some of Jenkin's exchanges. But again, that's a thing to be worked out in a room with actors. So if theater ever exists again, this could be a fun one to do.
I do feel Jenkin, we have license to effectively say, find a stand-up comedian and get him to produce some new material for. It feels like it invites that, and I don't have a problem with doing that because of the nature of it. Alexandra, final thoughts?
Yes, just a repetition of my final thought from yesterday, which is the language flows so easily. If I didn't know, I know very little about when and by whom and for what purpose this was written, but if I knew nothing, that would be my first question. Hang on a second, who's this for? Because it does, as has been pointed out, it does basically offer an opportunity to switch your brain off and just have some fun. And it makes references that, if you played this in the right place, they would be much more they would resonate and make the play much better beloved than if you played it elsewhere. So it feels very not very localized, specific in terms of what its target audience is. To me, that's just my thought. It seems to be very, very well crafted for a very specific audience, and I don't imagine that if you took this as a play to court, you'd have any success in Greene's time, if we're going with it being Greene.
I don't know that I agree at all, which is fine. Yes, it does centre working class and northern people at the centre of the narrative, but they are broad enough that they could be sort of you could refashion that. I don't feel that it's that specific, actually, apart from a few of the jokes where actually that's just time rather than location. May have done them a disservice. People are allowed to agree or disagree with that thought. Dan, I sort of curtailed you earlier, so your final thought, part two.
You didn't curtail me earlier. I didn't have a thought at the time, other than I enjoyed it. But just something to add, I was reading up a little bit on its publication, and apparently there was a ballad of it that's now lost. It's ballad.
It's not lost. It's right in the Word document after the end of the play.
No, that's a ballad.
I mean the broadside ballads.
My apologies. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's all right. Yeah.
Go on. I'm sorry. Yeah, go on, Dan.
No, just that there's a lost one of that. And apparently there wasn't a second quarto of it, but there was a chapbook printed of it in 1632. Chapbook being a small book pamphlet or whatnot. And there's no mention, by the way, in there of King James or King Edward, but it's all Richard I, Richard the Lionhearted in there. So just the idea of it being, I guess for a broad audience, it was, they thought enough to make a chapbook with, songs, riddles, whatnot,
Yes, I mean, they do mention names of Edward and things, but you're right. It feels odd to us. So if it obviously felt odd to them at the time that there's this decision that maybe it didn't quite land.
Well, the chapbook though was printed in 1632.
Yeah, but
So,
within 40 years,
Exactly.
someone went, "That's a bit weird."
Yeah.
Everybody else goes with Prince John. Sarah, final thoughts.
I tend to agree with Alexandra, actually.
Excellent.
I think this would work. Putting on my writer's head for a moment, I was writer in residence for a walled garden up in the north for a year. And I wrote for them a lot of plays that were set in the orchard. There was a very old orchard there. And we did a lot of promenade performances. And this, to me, it would be perfect in that space because it has that when you're outdoors you have to do like so many of the subtleties that you put into a play that you're writing when you're writing it to be staged indoors, which doesn't mean it can't be staged outdoors, but you don't put in those subtleties. You make it more about the action, the fact that this is all disguises and dressing up and then fighting. It would lend itself so well to like an orchard setting performance. And it has a kind of largeness. It has a colour, like a folktale-y colour and boldness to it, which I think would be perfect. I was thinking more for May Day, actually, than Christmas.
Yeah.
I think it would make a wonderful May Day play.
May Day or Midsummer.
Or Midsummer, yeah.
Well, that's when the Robin Hood plays tended to be done.
Oh, well, there you go then. And also it has... The other thing I really loved about it, which is a slightly separate thing, is it has this lovely sequential quality to it. Like you have, one story almost pretty much ends and then another story starts and we move into the next sort of story. And then at the end, we've actually got it again because everything is wrapped up. And then all of a sudden, King Edward comes out with this line, "Oh, let's go and see Jane Barley." And it's like, oh, okay, that's going to be the next play. It has this kind of, soap opera quality to it almost, where it's these lovely sequences. And again, I think that lends it really well to being played outside. I think you can get away with stuff outside that you couldn't possibly perhaps get away with indoors and vice versa. So I totally see it.
Valentina, final thought.
Well, I really enjoyed it, but more than anything, I think I do agree with you, Robert, in terms of like audiences, because I understand that it's really localized, but it's broad enough for people not coming from those parts to understand and to enjoy. So I don't think it would have been, it's a bit like when you watch a play that is based in Egypt, even if you're not Egyptian and you can understand it, it's good. It's enjoyable anyway. The only thing I would change, and that is because it's to if you put it on now, I think it's just to close, is the ending of Grime. You have to have a Some Like It Hot ending.
I mean, it's such a good callback as well, because it's been long enough for the audience to have forgotten and then go, oh.
That
one. Any sort of final callbacks in response? Dan, I see your hand. I think Alexandra as well. So Dan first.
Alexandra was up first, so go ahead.
Alexandra?
I just wanted to clarify two things. One is my statement about it being localized. I don't mean, you'd only be able to play it in Bradford. I mean, it would be, immensely tourable around there. I was talking about localized in terms of social strata and sort of context, because it treats the nobility as inept and the king only turns up to be a deus ex machina. And secondly, in support of the outdoors theory, quarterstaffs. If you're going to have quarterstaff fights, you know, you're going to wave around more than one stick of 2 meters or more in length, you might as well do that in a place with lots and lots and lots of space.
Mm. You know, someone's going to get an eye poked out, aren't they?
Maybe what you could do is recruit the local Morris team, who've got experiences doing stick dances.
Yeah, vicious creatures they are too. Dan?
I had worked at a very specific theatre, I think. I mean, that does work outdoors in fields and gardens and whatnot, I think would be fantastic. I had worked at a theatre in Wisconsin, a Shakespeare festival, that took place on a large field garden. And I remember we did She Stoops to Conquer in Rep with Comedy of Errors. And just the scene with the 3 pigeons, if you're familiar with the play, just all the tavern scenes were just so much fun to do outside, out there. And then afterwards, we'd always go to the pub. It just feels like that type of play where we're just going to sing, have a lot of fun, jolly fun, and then go drinking afterwards. Maybe something in the UK, all I can think of really is Antic Disposition and the touring company and whatnot, but where they do a lot of outdoor work. I think it might do well.
Any final thoughts, rebuttals, comments? No, right. Well, that's it for George Greene, the Pinner of Wakefield. We've had a lot of fun with this play. We encourage you to go out and do the same yourself. And once upon a time, when the world is a better place and we're able to go outside and do things. Though perhaps outdoor theatre is the only kind of theatre we'll be able to do now, because then you'll be able to at least enforce social distancing. So that way the staffs aren't there to fight anyone. We're there to keep other people at a distance. So that's the future that's possible from this play in performance in the short term, but in the medium to long term, do have a look at it. It's good fun, and hopefully we will see performances of it in the future. Thanks to all the team, and goodbye.
Bye.